All right, ladies and gentlemen, I have with me Mr. Trent Talbot, the founder of Brave Books. Welcome to the program, brother.
Have me, man.
Yeah. So there's been a little bit of a controversy that I've seen on the interwebs a bit, and it's related to a lot of the material that's been in schools. There's been a debate going on this over the past couple of years when parents started realizing what's been happening in their kids' classrooms. So we're going to talk a little bit about that and how you're trying to counteract some of that. But before we go into everything, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, your background and all that good stuff?
I was a happily practicing ophthalmologist up until the summer of 2020, and when I had my first daughter, Charlotte, and had her sort of during peak COVID with all the craziness, and she's laying in my arms, 3 weeks old. I'm scrolling through Twitter, and I come across the film or the trailer for the film Cuties, and it's this vile, disgusting film that sexualizes young girls, and just had never felt the love that.
Oh, I'm losing you. You're cutting out a little bit.
What about now?
That's better.
Okay, sorry.
Oh, no, that's okay. Let me just ask let me just do that little part over again real quick. Yeah, I always have technical issues when I'm doing this stuff. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I have with me Mr. Trent Talbot, the founder of Brave Books. And we're gonna talk a lot about how he's trying to counteract a lot of the material that's being inculcated in schools. And we've been having this debate over the past couple of years. So I think that this is a very important conversation. So before we go into everything, Trent, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, first, thanks for having me, Jeff. I was a happily practicing ophthalmologist up until the summer of 2020 when my daughter Charlotte was born. And I remember it like it was yesterday. She's sitting in my arms, 3 weeks old, taking a nap. I'm scrolling through Twitter and I see the trailer for the film Cuties. And it's this vile, disgusting film that sexualizes young girls. And I'm in new dad mode at the time. Had never felt the love that I felt for her, even remotely close to my entire life. And I just couldn't help thinking that, hey, she's going to be that age before I know it. And that's the type of things that she's going to see that are from culture that are telling her how she should act and just how she should view herself. And I just first I was sick to my stomach. I was angry, but then eventually I just started to feel this duty that somebody needed to fight back against the lies that culture is pushing on our kids. Culture is telling our kids they're confusing, demoralizing, degrading our kids, and kids need to hear a different message.
Yeah, I can imagine what that'd be like. I mean, I'm a dad too. My kids are older, but I can imagine what I would feel if I discovered that and my kids were still babies, because you don't want them growing up in that world. Because if that's what they're doing right now at that moment, it's only going to be worse by the time your daughter gets older if there's nothing done about it, which, I mean, there are a lot of people trying to do something about it, but I can understand why that would enrage you. I mean, it enraged a lot of people. Why don't you, so you started Brave Books. What is Brave Books?
We're a Christian company, meaning that we have a Christian culture, and a lot of we started with a lot of people from my church. But we make children's books that teach pro-America, pro-God, anti-woke values. And we're actively trying to push back against a lot of the lies that's coming from the leftist agenda.
Gotcha. So, I mean, you told the story about seeing the advertisement for Cuties. Was that what pushed you to start this company, or what was the tipping point that made you finally say, you know what, I need to do this. We need to start this company and push back?
Well, that was the trigger. That was sort of the inciting moment that made me, that sparked sort of me looking into all this stuff. And it sort of sent me down this rabbit hole of hell of looking at what else culture is teaching our kids. And at that moment, I looked at Amazon. What are the most common books being sold? The number one book on Amazon, all books, was Anti-Racist Baby. And then and a couple weeks later, my business partner Justin, his sister got his daughter a Nancy Drew book, but there was a trans character in it, and she was totally confused and didn't know what to make of it. And he had to have lots of long, hard conversations with her, and so it was just like all these things just started happening that just made me further realize how deep the rabbit hole went, how big the problem was. And then over time, the duty just got stronger and stronger.
Mm-hmm. And just for people who don't know, what is Anti-Racist Baby?
It's a book written by a critical race theory activist named Ibram X. Kendi, that basically pushes that all white people are racist. I'm probably not the best one to give a description, but to my crude understanding of it, that all white people are racist inherently, and that we need to acknowledge that, actively fight against it. And I don't know, what would you add anything to that?
Yeah, my impression is that it's basically a children's version of How to Be an Anti-Racist, which I have read. And that is the basic idea. I mean, it's the idea that if you're not actively anti-racist, then you are racist. There's no being non-racist. There's nothing in between. You're either with me or against me. Only a Sith deals in absolutes. but that's basically what it is. And there are a lot of books like that out there that are in school libraries and that are even being taught by teachers in schools. So can you give me I know you published books with a more conservative leaning and pro-America, pro-Christianity, like you say. Can you give us kind of some examples of some of the books and what they teach children?
Yeah, I got a couple here right behind me. So this was our first book, Elephants Not Birds. It teaches that boys are boys and girls are girls, and it's about an elephant who comes across Culture the Vulture, and Culture the Vulture tells
I like that. Culture Vulture
tells Kevin the elephant that hey, you're such a good singer, you can or surely you must be a bird, and tries to convince him that because he prefers to sing and not carry carts around, that he's actually a bird. And Kevin loves that idea. He loves the idea of flying around, and Culture actually gives him a beak and some wings, but eventually Kevin realizes that he can't fly too well. He has a big fall from the top of a tree. And
he's not Dumbo.
No, but he ends up saving the day. The without giving away the story, maybe I will give it away, but the big pine in the center of a tree catches fire, and Kevin puts the elephant out with his trunk. And so he learns that his elephantness is a good thing, and that he was made for a reason, and to be careful of the lies that he hears. So anyway, that's an example of one of our books, but how we approach, so our books are not preachy. They're first of all just good stories, and we believe that kids learn these confusing or important topics, complex topics, best through story, and that parents can best explain to their kids through story instead of speaking to them like they would appear and talking at a conceptual level, abstract level. That using story gives a solid framework for a parent to have a conversation. We actually facilitate that. In the back of the books, we have something called the Brave Challenge, where it's games and discussion questions that spark a conversation between parents and kids. And so that was our first book. Our second book, Little Lives Matter, covers the topic of sanctity of life. Okay. Kids are being taught in schools that it's okay to kill a baby as long as it's in the womb, and that's a lie, in my opinion. And so that book is a fun story that covers. It doesn't cover abortion, obviously. I mean, right. We're talking but we do it. We teach the value of life, and that life needs to be protected.
I'm glad that you brought that up, because especially among conservatives, we know that they're teaching far leftist ideology on race, with critical race theory, gender identity, sexuality, but we don't pay attention to the fact that they're also teaching about abortion too. It was just like a couple of weeks ago that I saw an article where this school is actually teaching about abortion, but in a pro-abortion way. So there are a lot of ways that they're trying to indoctrinate children, and we have to be cognizant of that. And I think, to your point about storytelling, you're right about that, because storytelling has been proven to be, one, a good way to illustrate a concept, but two, a very excellent persuasion tool. And that's for adults too, not just kids, which is why we see a lot of these books coming from the left, because they want to inculcate these values using storytelling. I'm glad that you're counteracting that, because it's needed. What has been the response to you? Well, first off, how long has Brave Books been around?
We launched in July of 2021.
Okay.
So we started actually started the company in like February or March of 2021, and we quickly came out with our first book. And so we've been in existence 14 months or so, and it's been a wild ride. We did, like I said, we were a group of friends from church, and didn't know what we were doing. Just found some amazingly talented, creative people, and then pulled in some people that didn't know what they were doing to help us sort of steer us in the right direction. Yeah. We partner with conservative icons with each of our books, and they've really helped get the word out, and the response has been great. We're not like another company that makes a commodity or paper plate. There's a real need for it. So the conservative movement has really gotten behind what we're doing.
Good. What kind of feedback are you getting? Not from the left, they don't count, but other than that, what kind of feedback are you getting?
Well, people love what we're doing. They love our mission, but I think what's blown people away is just how good the books are. Because when you say like, we make children's books for conservatives, typically you would think that the quality would go down. You're sort of taking on the smaller niche, but I put our books up against any books out there, any kids books out there. They really are the best. From the illustrations, the storytelling, we've created our whole world. Every story takes place on Freedom Island. We have this cast of characters called Team Brave, which is our 5 main protagonists. And we've done a really, really good job. I've got some incredibly creative and talented people. And so I think that's really blowing people away.
Yeah. And that's important, because, when you're making a product like that, whether it's film, television, or books, you want to put the values in there, but you don't want to be preachy. You don't want to beat them over the head with it, because it kind of gets in the way of what you're trying to do. Yeah. Like if I'm watching a show, even if it's from the left and they're just bashing me over the head with it, I don't want to watch it. But if they're just putting it in the story and it's not preaching at me, not telling me I'm a horrible person, okay, I can agree with it, or I cannot agree with it. I can, as long as I can enjoy the art. So I think I think that's very important, and I think that's why you're getting a lot of the feedback that you're getting. And you've partnered with some big names, like you said, like Dana Lash, Dinesh D'Souza. I think it's great. So, So I want to get to the bad guys here. So, I'm gonna read you a quote from this Politico article that I found, and I wrote a repudiation of it. But it was written by Joanna Weiss, and you can clearly tell that she's on the progressive side. Like, this is not an objective review. So one of the things that she wrote was, quote, "The pitch might well appeal to far-right culture warriors with kids and grandkids and nieces and nephews, but whether the books will appeal to actual children seems, if not an afterthought, then at least a secondary question. The main goal isn't to create great literature, but scoring political points." So so did you start this whole company just to own the libs, Trent? Is that what's going on here?
No, we with every book, our first and second priority is just to make great art, and that was reflected in our hires. With we've got a lot of artists, and we take it very seriously, and we're trying to build something that will last for 50, 100 years, with the world that we've built, with the characters that we're developing. So yeah, I think she had that article written before she got the books, because I guarantee if you got her off camera, they stand up. They're legit.
Yeah. How are children reacting? I mean, I'm sure they're enjoying
Children
it.
love it. Children love it. I mean, we get messages every single day, from whether emails or on social media of whenever. So we have a book of the month club. Our main product offering is a book of the month subscription. We come out with a new book every single month, and so like we've got thousands of subscribers, and their favorite day of the month is whenever their Brave book comes in, and so we get videos every day of kids ripping it open. Oh, the Brave book's here, and so they absolutely love it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Now you had mentioned to me offline that, I mean, there are other attacks that these people are making against you. Well, what have you been seeing so far? Like what type of attacks are they launching? And also, why do you think that they have such a problem with this?
Well, yeah, we've had quite a few hit pieces at this point. As far as why, I think that they've been used to sort of having a monopoly on children's minds for the past 30 or so years, and they don't like that. One, the right is aware of that now. All the negative things that happen from COVID, I think one positive is that parents are now awake that, oh my goodness, culture, schools, Hollywood are trying to raise my kids right out from under me, and trying to indoctrinate them in a value system that I don't believe in. And so the right now is waking up, and the left art so good, and ultimately the art is going, the art, it has to stand up for it to last a long time, and ours does.
Yeah, and I think you're right about the silver lining with COVID. When they were pushing all these lockdown orders and closing down schools, I don't think they thought about the fact that, hey, if we do this, parents might find out what we're doing with their kids in schools. That it was one of the biggest mistakes they made, honestly. So I mean, I am glad that has happened. But it's weird. You talk about them wanting to have a monopoly over everything, but what did they always say when we were complaining about being censored on social media? Well, just build your own, do your own social media company. And then we did it, and then they whined about that. So it's the same principle here. Like, we're not saying, oh, we need to go burn your books. We're going to, we don't want them taught to little children. No. But at the same time, we're trying to create, or you're trying to create our own, so that we can present our values to our children. And they still have a problem with it. I think they just don't like the competition. And the thing about progressives is that they are used to having, like you said, the monopoly over everything. They control all of our major institutions. But now we're seeing a little bit of a resurgence. We're seeing a resurgence against that. Where do you see this thing going? I mean, as far as children's books, but even beyond that.
In regards to the culture war in general, or the culture war on our kids.
Let's talk about culture war on our kids specifically.
Yeah. Yeah. So the left, they own the schools, they own Hollywood, they own social media. I mean, we're in a fight for our lives, to be honest with you, because to me, I think the left views the indoctrination of our kids is more or less like a life or death issue for them, because the left doesn't have very many kids. So in order for them and it's true, like they just don't.
You're right.
And the right has way more kids. So in order for the left to repopulate their party, they have to take our kids from us, and they do that through entertainment and schools, books, and just curriculums. Like, it's everything. So it's a very important issue. The left is like light years ahead of where we are, as far as because that's not what we want to do, but they put a lot of energy, bandwidth, thought into it. For us, it's like me, and like, it's just not, we don't have a very coordinated response to but here's the deal, is that truth is on our side, and truth ultimately, in my opinion, is going to win out. And if you're aligned with truth, you're going to make the best art as well. And I think that the first step in order for us to eventually win has happened, and that is for parents to start to realize that their kids are being indoctrinated, and then everything else is sort of like a step after that. But that was the big triggering event. And so while I'm like, oh my gosh, we're far behind, hopeful, very hopeful.
Yeah, me too. I mean, we talk about this stuff going on in schools, and it didn't just start. It's been going on for a long time. I mean, I've talked to teachers, I've talked to educators who have studied this stuff, and it actually started back when I was a kid. That's really when it started, and now it's grown since then. So I think you made a really good point. Like, the left doesn't have as many kids as the right does, but in this way, they want to raise a new generation of far left-wing activists and people who buy into those causes. I mean, if you look at the Democratic Party, the progressive wing does have some influence, but it's still the establishment running things. But if they can inculcate these kids and indoctrinate them, they're playing the long game, and over time, they can change that. And I agree that we are behind. We're playing catch up right now. Well, we are, but I am seeing that people are getting it finally, that you can't just let this stuff happen. You have to fight it. And the more this stuff gets exposed, the more angry people get. So I'm a little bit more white pilled on this, just like you are. So I'm looking forward to it. What do you think? I mean, other than what you're doing, what else do we need to be doing to gain more ground in the culture war overall?
Man, yeah, we talked a lot about art today already, but I do think that we do need to make great art and entertainment. I think it's such a big and probably underrated aspect of culture, at least from the right. I think the left gets it.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, so I think that we need to make great art. We need to make our own art. I think that, in my opinion, the health of the church, we need the church to be stronger. The church is such a key backbone of what's always made American culture what it is, and so health of the church is important. Those would be my two things.
Yeah, I agree. And that's why I like what you're doing. And I like what the Daily Wire is doing. I'm sure they'll still have some kinks to work out as they get used to doing this, but conservatives have not been engaged in the culture like that. I mean, I just saw Top Gun a couple days ago, and that's not a conservative movie, but it kind of is, though. I mean, and Tom Cruise is not a conservative, I'm sure, but that movie was a prime example of what people like us could be doing with art. I mean, it wasn't preachy, but it wasn't political either, but it was a very pro-America movie, even if they weren't waving the flag all over the place. And I think that's kind of, that should be kind of one of the examples that we should follow, I think. I don't know if you saw the movie or not.
Oh, I did. It was incredible. And yeah, I think the audience, maybe even the left as well as the right, is so hungry for just some non-woke art, and whenever they finally got it with Top Gun, it was like, oh, there's a breath of fresh air.
Yeah. Okay, great. Well, we got to have you back on, because I want to keep track of what you're doing. I want to continue to promote what you're doing, because I think it's very important. But before we sign off, why don't you let everybody know where they can find you?
Yeah. So bravebooks.com. Go there. It's easy to get angry about what culture is pushing on our kids, but anger doesn't fix anything. But I can guarantee you, if you get the Book of the Month subscription for your kids or grandkids, they will definitely be equipped with some pro-America, pro-God values that that really equip them with a solid foundation of truth, so that whenever they're out in culture, and we can't shelter our kids, they're going to hear this stuff, but it'll give them a solid ground of truth that they can stand on. So bravebooks.com.
All right, great. Thanks for joining the program.
Thank you, Jeff.